Usually, when we talk about fixing something that's broken, like, say, a house, there's this expectation of visible, noisy progress.
Right, like lots of noise.
Exactly. You have hammers swinging, walls being torn down, scaffolding going up everywhere. It's loud, it's chaotic.
Everybody walking by can see something is happening.
Yeah, and the noise is almost like it's the proof of the effort. We sort of equate the sheer volume of a construction site with the importance of the repair.
We really do. And what's interesting is we subconsciously map that exact same expectation onto human relationships.
Oh, yeah.
But when you step into the invisible architecture of trust,
Yeah.
especially after a major betrayal where someone actually chooses to give their partner a second chance, that whole construction site metaphor completely flips on its head.
It totally does.
Yeah, we're looking at a landscape where the loudest reactions are, surprisingly, the least effective, and the real foundation is rebuilt in total silence.
Welcome to today's deep dive. If you're joining us, we are decoding that invisible architecture of relationship boundaries and emotional autonomy today.
It's a heavy one, but so important.
It really is. Our mission for this deep dive is to look at what actually makes a boundary powerful, why our instinct to sort of punish a partner usually blows up in our faces, and how quietly shifting your own life focus does, well, all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, it's a massive paradigm shift.
So if you're navigating a complex relationship dynamic right now, or even if you just love tracking the psychology of human connection, there is so much to unpack here because right after deciding to give a partner a second chance, there's this incredibly common, yet almost entirely hidden anxiety.
The fear of cheap forgiveness.
Yes. Okay, let's unpack this. Because this fear of cheap forgiveness is basically the engine for all the chaos that follows, right?
Exactly. It's this haunting internal voice. When someone chooses to stay and, try again, they are immediately hit with this panic.
And like recovering too fast.
Right. Am I recovering too quickly? Well, they think the price they paid for hurting me wasn't high enough. It's a really agonizing position to be in.
Because you've been hurt and you want the relationship to survive, but...
But you are absolutely terrified of being perceived as a doormat.
Right.
So the human brain tries to solve this vulnerability by, proving the severity of the situation.
We think, I need to make them understand on a visceral level how badly they messed up. And the default way people do that is through volume.
Chaos.
Yeah, chaos. Loud arguments, explosive anger, slamming doors, or the inverse, which is just as loud in its own way.
Oh, the Cold Wars.
The agonizing, drawn-out Cold Wars, like blocking them on social media for 48 hours or ghosting them just to induce a panic.
Yeah.
We put up all this scaffolding and swing these heavy hammers to show them, like, we mean business.
But the tragic irony of that approach is that none of those things actually communicate severity. Not in a way that creates lasting structural change anyway.
Wait, really? Because it feels so serious in the moment.
It feels serious, sure, but those actions are fundamentally performative. You're acting out your pain in the hopes of controlling their reaction. You're waiting to see if your cold shoulder makes them apologize.
Or if your anger makes them beg.
Exactly.
It's like thinking a barking dog is the most dangerous dog.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right. We assume that making a massive amount of noise proves that we are a serious threat to the relationship status quo. We think the noise equals the boundary.
Yeah, but mechanically, all that barking just signals that the dog is still on the leash.
Yes, still on the leash. It proves you are deeply entangled and completely emotionally reactive to that person. If you're spending all your energy trying to make someone else feel bad, your entire emotional center of gravity is still revolving entirely around them.
That visual of the leash perfectly explains the underlying psychology. Because these chaotic reactions, they don't make a partner realize the situation is serious. No. Consciously or subconsciously, an offending partner picks up on the fact that your rage is just a form of deep investment. They know that as long as you are fighting them, you are still fighting for them.
Wow. Yeah.
They feel the tension on the leash, which, paradoxically, makes them feel secure. They know you aren't going anywhere while you're busy yelling at them.
That is wild. Okay, so if slamming doors and silent treatments just prove we're still on the leash, what does taking the leash off actually look like?
Well, the alternative presented in our source material isn't about noise at all. It's about a fundamental structural shift, like a silent earthquake.
A silent earthquake. Okay, break that down for us.
So what truly makes an offending partner realize the sheer gravity of their actions is when the actual structure of how you relate to them changes. And this happens in two distinct ways.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is dropping what's known as high-density binding, basically reclaiming your life focus. The wrong person simply stops revolving their daily existence, their mood, their schedule around the relationship.
They start expanding their own life again.
Exactly. They pick up old hobbies, they focus on their career, they, reconnect deeply with friends.
And it's crucial to understand the mechanism here, right?
Mhm.
They aren't doing this performatively to make the partner jealous.
Right. It's not a trick.
They're doing it because they are actively withdrawing the energy they use to pour into the partnership, and they have to put that energy somewhere else to survive.
Precisely. And the partner feels the sudden absence of that energy.
So what's the second shift?
The second structural shift is redefining the relationship itself, moving from being a long-term planning, deep investment partner.
Or the unconditional safety net part.
Yes. Moving from that to a state of observation and downgrading. You stop defaulting to the assumption that you are permanently bound to this person.
You put them on probation, basically.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
You look at them not as your guaranteed future, but as someone you're observing. And that quiet internal shift in how you view them is what actually makes a partner uneasy. Because the sudden lack of friction makes them realize you might actually be preparing to walk away.
Okay, wait, hold on. I need to push back on this downgrading concept.
Sure.
Isn't shifting someone from deep investment to observation mode just like passive aggressive?
I can see why it sounds like that.
I mean, are we not just giving someone the cold shoulder but dressing it up in fancy therapy speak to feel superior about it? Like, oh, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just putting our relationship in observation mode. It sounds like a loophole for being petty and withholding affection as payback.
It's a really sharp distinction, and it's where a lot of people get tripped up. But what's fascinating here is the underlying intent and the neurological goal.
Yeah.
This isn't a punishment. It's a necessary restructuring of trust. Think about the mechanics of punishment. When you punish someone, your goal is to inflict pain so they learn a lesson. You're trying to manipulate their feelings to control their future behavior.
You want a reaction.
Yes. You want them to hurt so they stop hurting you.
Right.
But a structural shift, moving into observation mode, is fundamentally about protection, not retaliation. You aren't withdrawing your deep investment to hurt them.
You're withdrawing it because it's not safe anymore.
Exactly. It's no longer safe to invest your core vulnerability in someone who just broke the foundation of your trust. Changing the trust structure is the logical, natural consequence of betrayal. Traditional punishment, on the other hand, is just a power play.
Okay, I see the mechanics of that. Punishment is an external manipulation, but structural change is an internal adjustment of your own safety parameters.
Spot on.
Which brings us to, honestly, the most exhausting trap people fall into when they ignore structural change and try to regain safety through sheer force of will.
Oh, vindictive control.
Yeah.
Vindictive control.
Yeah. This is the reflex we see constantly. The person who was hurt tries to manage their partner's future behavior through highly restrictive rules.
Like checking their phone every single night.
Checking phones, demanding location sharing 204/7, dictating who they can and cannot socialize with.
Endless interrogations about like a
Perfect.
10-minute gap in their schedule.
Yeah.
And if you are listening to this right now and you've ever found yourself 3 months into checking a partner's phone while they sleep, you know exactly how physically and mentally draining this is.
It is exhausting.
The intent is to make the offending partner afraid to mess up again. And maybe they are afraid in the short term, but the long-term result isn't a restored relationship. You are building an intimate prison.
You are. And the psychology behind vindictive control stems from a desperate, deeply human desire for an impossible guarantee. Your brain is just screaming for absolute certainty that this person will 100% never betray you again.
So you try to engineer an environment where betrayal is physically impossible?
It's like deciding to become a full-time prison guard in your own home. Yes, you have the other person locked down. You know exactly where they are. You inspect their messages. You monitor their perimeter.
But the tragedy of the prison guard is that you are now just as trapped inside those walls as the inmate.
Wow, yeah. You're spending all your waking mental energy patrolling the relationship. You've entirely sacrificed your own freedom, your own peace, and your own life focus in this futile attempt to restrict theirs.
Futile is the operative word there.
Yeah.
Because you simply cannot ensure a partner won't reoffend. You cannot control another human being's choices, no matter how tight the surveillance is.
It's a fool's errand.
It really is. The pursuit of a 100% guarantee of future good behavior creates massive suppression, a toxic power imbalance, and replaces actual love and connection with hypervigilance. The betrayed person's peace of mind is completely destroyed by their own defensive strategy.
So if vindictive control just turns you into an exhausted warden and barking just proves you're still on the leash,
Yeah.
we have to look at what actually works.
Yes.
What does a genuinely mature boundary look like when it's stripped of all the noise and the surveillance? How do you protect yourself without locking down the perimeter?
Well, a mature boundary operates on a completely different axis than control. It's defined simply as, I am stating the conditions under which I will stay, and I will truly decide whether to remain or leave based on your behavior moving forward.
Not, I'm going to threaten you every day.
Right. It is the polar opposite of saying, I am going to threaten you and watch you every day so you behave.
This looks like setting crystal clear, immovable parameters, like allowing only one single instance of mental or emotional overstepping before a major consequence.
Or having an absolute zero-tolerance policy for physical overstepping.
Right. It means prioritizing the partner's observable actions over their tearful apologies and explicitly placing the relationship in that defined observation period we discussed earlier.
And this is usually where the concept of boundaries faces the heaviest resistance.
I can see why. Because it sounds exactly like an ultimatum. If I say, I have zero tolerance for physical overstepping, and if it happens, I am done, how is that not just a threat?
That's the common confusion.
How is that different from the vindictive control we were just tearing apart? You're still holding a gun to their head, you've just painted the gun a different color.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the distinction here is subtle, but it completely changes the power dynamic. It comes down to locus of control, internal versus external.
Okay, lay that out.
An ultimatum is a tool of coercion. It is designed entirely to manipulate the other person's behavior. It says, you must do this or else I will punish you. The focus is completely locked on to what the other person is doing.
And a mature boundary.
A mature boundary is a statement of your own future actions. It's entirely internal. It's not about making the other person afraid to cross the line. It's about making your own standard of safety clear to yourself. When you establish a zero-tolerance policy, you are not trying to control their hands or their words. You are simply stating a geographical fact about your own limits.
Like drawing a line in the sand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are saying, if this environment becomes toxic or unsafe, I will remove myself from it. You aren't forcing them to be good. You are promising yourself that you will be safe.
That is a massive paradigm shift. An ultimatum is, I will make you stay in line. A boundary is, I will leave if the line is crossed.
Yes.
It completely removes the need for the prison guard because you aren't guarding them anymore. You were just guarding the exit.
Exactly. And that shift highlights a profound truth about boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Their power has absolutely nothing to do with the harsh words used to declare them.
Setting the standard intellectually is like incredibly easy. Anyone can memorize a list of therapy phrases or read a self-help book and declare, I have boundaries.
Yeah.
But a boundary is only a string of empty words unless it is backed by one specific, terrifying capability.
The ultimate security.
The ultimate security. Here's where it gets really interesting. The power to walk away. True security isn't about extracting these ironclad, blood oath guarantees from your partner.
No, it's not.
It's not about them promising they will never hurt you. True security is entirely about your own individual resilience. It's the deep internal capacity to leave.
A boundary only alters the dynamic of a relationship if the person setting it actually believes they will execute it. The goal of stating a boundary isn't to look tough. The goal is to force yourself to look in the mirror and ask a brutal question.
If they do this again, can I actually pack my bags and walk out the door?
Precisely. And if your honest internal answer is no, if you know deep down you are too enmeshed, too terrified of being alone, or too financially dependent to actually leave, then your boundaries are just bluffs.
They're barking.
They are barking.
Yeah.
And your partner, on a primal level, will sense that emptiness. They will feel that you don't have the capacity to execute the threat.
So how do we actually build that capacity? How do we rewire ourselves to get to a place where we can honestly answer yes?
It requires a dedicated, intentional, internal process. You have to start observing your own emotions without letting them consume your identity. You engage in detached analysis of what the relationship is actually providing versus what it's costing you.
Right.
But above all, you have to restore your subjectivity.
Subjectivity, meaning your fundamental sense of self as an independent, whole, self-sustaining person, entirely separate from your role as a partner.
Yes, true emotional health is arriving at a psychological baseline where you know in your bones, even if the betrayal happens again, I have the ability to leave and the departure will not destroy me.
It's the profound paradox of relationship repair, isn't it?
Yeah.
The less terrified you are of losing the relationship, the more authentic and powerful your boundaries become. You stop operating from a place of suffocating desperation.
You really do.
Thinking about the mechanics of this restored subjectivity, it operates exactly like wearing a parachute on a commercial flight.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
When you strap on a parachute, you don't want the plane to crash. You aren't trying to force the pilot to fly better. You aren't bursting into the cockpit to micromanage the altitude.
Which is exactly what vindictive control is.
Yes. You deeply, genuinely hope you reach your destination smoothly.
But the knowledge of the parachute changes your nervous system.
Completely. Knowing you have the parachute strapped to your back and knowing mechanically how to pull the ripcord if the engines fail removes the sheer terror of the flight.
You can actually relax a bit.
Exactly. It changes how comfortably you can sit in your seat. You aren't sweating, hyperventilating, watching the pilot's every single move because you know that no matter what happens to the integrity of the plane, you are capable of surviving the fall.
That is the exact mechanism of restored subjectivity.
Yeah.
That parachute is your reclaimed life focus. It's your financial independence, your robust social support system, your independent hobbies, and your internal self-worth. When your life's center of gravity is firmly anchored within yourself, you are no longer terrified of the relationship crashing. Because you aren't acting out of panic, your boundaries cease to be hysterical, frantic threats. They become undeniable, calm statements of reality.
And that calm reality is what actually changes the behavior of the offending partner. They realize it not because you screamed at them or checked their phone, but because they can clearly see you wearing the parachute.
They feel the lack of the leash.
They realize, oh, wow, they genuinely do not need me to survive. I have to step up and earn my place here, or I'm going to watch them pull the ripcord.
They feel the structural shift. You aren't threatening them with abandonment. You are simply demonstrating your own autonomy. And that autonomy is deeply commanding.
So what does this invisible architecture mean for you, the listener, whether you're navigating a massive romantic betrayal, a highly difficult friendship, or just trying to survive toxic family dynamics?
It applies to all of it.
We've explored the mechanical reasons why quiet, internal structural shifts in your own life completely outpace loud, dramatic punishments. We've seen how trying to guarantee someone else's good behavior through vindictive control only exhausts you and traps you in an intimate prison where you are both the warden and the prisoner.
We've broken down the locus of control, the critical difference between an ultimatum designed to coerce someone else and a mature boundary designed to protect yourself. A boundary isn't a weapon, it's a navigational map for your own life.
Ultimately, the core lesson here is that true emotional security isn't about forcing the people around you to promise they'll be good forever. You can't control the weather. Security is about building your own parachute.
Absolutely.
It's about cultivating your own internal capacity to walk away intact if the plane starts going down. Your power never lies in controlling others. It lies entirely in your absolute, undeniable emotional autonomy.
It is a complete rewiring of how we view safety and connection. And it raises a really provocative question to ponder as you look at your own dynamic.
Oh, lay it on us.
If true, powerful boundary setting relies so heavily on our absolute willingness and readiness to walk away. Does that mean the most stable, lifelong relationships aren't held together by ironclad promises never to leave?
Wow.
Are they actually maintained by a quiet daily acceptance between two autonomous people that the relationship could end tomorrow and therefore must be actively earned today? If the ultimate security is knowing you can survive the end, then perhaps the healthiest couples are simply the ones who never take their permanence for granted.
The invisible foundation of a relationship is strongest when both people know the doors aren't locked from the outside. Take these concepts, look at the architecture of the structures in your own life, and keep expanding your own horizons. You can't control the turbulence, but you can always pack your own parachute. Until next time.